I said no. I'm gonna be honest with you. I feel like it was a misquote because see, if I was the editor in chief over there at People, I would have corrected Kandi for her. What led to the breakdown of the divorce wasn't because he was courting women behind your back. It's because he was courting women without you.
Hold on to your seats. She spilled it all. What just exploded online hits like a precision-guided scandal, ruthless, jaw-dropping, and utterly unavoidable. After years of hushed whispers, shady glances, and doors slammed shut, Tasha K supposedly stepped up and tore the veil off a secret that should have stayed buried forever. According to her claims, Kandi wasn't merely hiding a fling. She allegedly ran a double life so meticulously crafted that even her inner circle never saw it coming. The accusation, a long-term, a clandestine affair with Colman Domingo that supposedly overlapped with other romances. Timelines twisting in ways that make your head spin. This wasn't a blip. This wasn't idle gossip. Tasha insists it was years. Years of silence. Years of cover-ups. Years of truth buried beneath fame and meticulously polished stories. And then comes the part that allegedly obliterated everything. When Riley Burris arrived, the public tale was neat, harmless, and neat. But behind closed doors, Tasha claims something far more sinister. That the truth about Riley's biological father was intentionally hidden. The name presented wasn't the one that counted. And when a supposed DNA report emerged later, it didn't just question the story, it blew it to pieces. Insiders say the aftermath was savage. Private chats went nuclear. Family ties reportedly splintered. And Riley, once kept away from the chaos, supposedly landed smack in the middle of a truth she never signed up for. Emotions skyrocketed. Fury boiled. Silence shattered. And when Riley finally responded, sources claim it didn't whisper. It detonated. Social media? Pure inferno. Fans split between shock and heartbreak. Some demand answers. Others question every assumption they ever held. Because if these claims hold water, this isn't just celebrity tea. This is a disaster brewed from secrets, identity, and years of deceit. And the eeriest part? Tasha K is hinting this is merely the opening act.
You were jealous. And a lot of women that do end up, and I know them. They bring people into their bedrooms because they it's like they unintentionally but intentionally want to be the cool kid in school. They want to have the cool marriage. They boys to be able to say, my wife cool. She let me other women. And you think it looks cool that you look cool, but really it's an insecurity.
What you're about to hear isn't cozy. It isn't tidy. And it absolutely isn't the version anyone expected to swallow. This is the type of story that slinks in quietly, lodges in your chest, and then hits like a freight train. Allegedly, in this industry, secrets don't vanish. They just get postponed. And for years, this one lingered behind grins, contracts, and perfectly timed silence. According to current claims, Kandi wasn't merely safeguarding a private fling. She allegedly built a full-on alternate universe. A long-term, deeply buried affair with Colman Domingo, all while other relationships played the starring role in public. Not whispers once in passing. Not a minor slip. But an alleged emotional connection spanning years, timelines overlapping in ways nobody was ready to confront. Sources claim it wasn't messy. It was orchestrated. Every step deliberate, public appearances pristine, private chats locked down. Insiders said there were moments when the truth nearly peeked out, then vanished again under rehearsed cover stories. Fame has a talent for buffing the rough edges. And allegedly, this secret lasted because it was never allowed to crack. Then comes the cruelest twist of all. When Riley Burris made her debut, the story fed to the public was clean and absolute. A name was assigned, a lineage proclaimed, family echoed it, and the public bought it. But behind locked doors, insiders suggest the truth was messier. Tasha K now alleges that Riley's biological father was intentionally misrepresented. Not a slip, but a calculated move to maintain stability, image, and control. If accurate, this wasn't merely hiding a romance. It was molding a life from the very start. Those close to the family reportedly recall moments of doubt. Quick flashes of guilt that were buried instantly. The deception didn't appear overnight. It developed, hardened, became habitual. Riley grew up believing one tale while another lurked silently, waiting for the worst possible moment to strike. That instant allegedly hit after a marriage imploded. According to circulating claims, the breakup of Kandi and Todd wasn't just emotional, it sparked investigation. When trust dissolves, people dig into questions once ignored. Allegedly, that's when the documents emerged. A DNA report, silent at first, then undeniable. The kind of document that doesn't care about fame or legacy. Sources say when the results came out, the room didn't erupt, it froze. Shock doesn't always shout. Sometimes it smothers everything. Allegedly, the report identified Colman Domingo as Riley's biological father, a revelation that shattered years of public narrative and private assurances. From there, the fallout was unstoppable. Family members reportedly reacted in waves. Denial, rage, disbelief. Conversations turned sharp, accusations replacing affection. And at the heart of it all was Riley, now grappling with an identity crisis no child should ever face. Insiders claim the emotional weight was immediate and crushing. Realizing your origin story might have been rewritten isn't something you digest quietly. This is where Tasha K. steps in. According to her, she didn't just stumble on the story, she hunted it. She claims she was tipped off, then handed fragments, messages, timelines, and documents that formed a picture too consistent to dismiss. She insists the DNA report wasn't gossip, it was evidence. And once she verified enough to feel certain, she made a move that would ignite everything. When Tasha K. allegedly went public, subtlety was off the table. No hints, no teases. She exposed it all. Names, context, alleged proof. And just like that, a family's most protected secret was yanked into the spotlight. The reaction was immediate. Social media didn't debate, it exploded. Fans divided. Some refused to believe, calling it impossible. Others felt betrayed, saying the pieces finally clicked. Old interviews resurfaced. Previously ignored moments were dissected. Silence became suspicious. Every unanswered question screamed. And then there was Riley. Sources claim Riley's response wasn't quiet grief. It was raw, explosive emotion. Anger laced with heartbreak, confusion colliding with betrayal. People close to the story claim Riley felt stripped of agency, truth, and choice. Learning it through allegations and headlines is a trauma no privilege can erase. This is where the tale turns tragic. If these claims hold, everyone involved was guarding something different. One shielded image, another shielded peace. Someone else protected a lie long enough that it became reality. And the person with the most at stake was never told the truth until it was too late to soften the blow. Insiders allege attempts were made to control the fallout, private conversations, pleas for silence, appeals to let it slide. But once a secret hits daylight, it doesn't slink back. It scorches. The courtroom-style tension surrounding this saga isn't legal yet, but it's raw and emotional. Everyone is on trial in the court of public opinion. Motives scrutinized, timelines dissected, words weighed for what they skipped saying. And through it all, one question lingers. If this secret stayed hidden so long, what else was buried? Tasha K. insists this isn't shocking for shock's sake. It's human. Allegedly, she claims it's about truth delayed turning into truth weaponized. About a child growing up inside a narrative that wasn't theirs. About adults making choices that echo for decades. Whether every detail is accurate or not, the damage is already obvious. Reputation strained, relationships cracked, and Riley's name is now tied to a scandal she never sparked. Fans say the cruelest part isn't the affair allegations, it's the silence that followed, the years where honesty could have changed everything. And this is only Act 1. Because according to those watching closely, more receipts may emerge, more voices may speak, more contradictions might crumble under scrutiny. What was once locked is now thrown into the light. And light has a way of exposing more than anyone planned. This isn't just gossip. It's a warning about secrets wrapped in power, about truths delayed until they become unbearable. And as this saga keeps unfolding, one thing is obvious. Nothing about this will ever be the same. What happened next, according to insiders, wasn't chaos. It was collapse. Quiet at first, behind closed doors where voices lowered and trust dissolved. Allegedly, the instant the truth became unavoidable, alliances shifted. Those who once defended the narrative reportedly started defending themselves. Silence turned tactical. Statements were delayed, and every pause felt calculated. Insiders claim Riley didn't just question the story she'd been fed. She questioned every memory tied to it, birthdays, conversations, reassurances that now rang rehearsed. Sources say the emotional weight wasn't only anger. It was grief. Grief for truths withheld. Grief for an identity shaped by omission. And grief doesn't stay polite for long. Allegedly, Riley confronted the people she trusted most, demanding answers that no longer came easily. The explanations reportedly fell flat. Words like protection and timing felt empty when stacked against years of silence. Those close to Riley say the realization struck hardest when she realized the lie wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. Meanwhile, pressure around Kandi reportedly intensified, publicly composed, privately unraveling. Sources claim that once the DNA revelation surfaced, there was no rewinding it. Every effort to downplay it only fueled suspicion. Fans noticed the shift. Interviews grew guarded. Social media activity waned. The lack of denial spoke louder than any statement. This is where the situation started to feel like a courtroom with no judge. Every past interview turned into evidence. Every old clip replayed with fresh context. Viewers dissected body language, pauses, and choice of words. What once seemed confident now felt cautious. What once appeared transparent now seemed edited. Online analysts combed timelines, highlighting overlaps that allegedly lined up too perfectly to ignore. And at the eye of the storm stood Colman Domingo, silent, distant, unmoving. Sources say his absence only fueled more speculation. No confirmation, no denial, just distance. In situations like this, silence speaks louder than words. Fans debated its meaning. Was it respect, legal caution, or something deeper? The lack of response sharpened the narrative forming around him. Tasha K, however, didn't back down. According to her claims, she doubled down. She alleged that what she exposed was only a fraction of what she had uncovered: messages, dates, and conversations that allegedly backed her version of events. She insisted the truth wasn't messy, it was documented, and once documentation exists, it doesn't quietly vanish. Sources say Tasha K framed the story not as scandal, but as consequence. A consequence of choosing secrecy over honesty, of prioritizing image over impact. She allegedly argued this wasn't about tearing someone down. It was about exposing a truth that had already wreaked damage behind the scenes. The emotional fallout, insiders claim, began spilling outward. Family members reportedly stopped talking. Long-standing relationships froze. People picked sides without announcing it. And Riley, now thrust into the public eye for reasons beyond her control, allegedly struggled under the weight of being the center of a narrative she never agreed to. Fans noticed changes in her demeanor: distance, restraint, guardedness. People close to Riley say the anger eventually gave way to something heavier: resignation. Because once the truth emerges publicly, there's no private space to process it. And that's where the tragedy deepens. Allegedly, the truth could have been revealed quietly years earlier, before identities hardened, before expectations cemented, before a young woman had to learn her origins through whispers and headlines instead of honesty. The damage, sources say, isn't only emotional, it's foundational. The public rarely pauses for nuance. As the story spread, commentary turned merciless. Sympathy mixed with judgment. Some defended Kandi, arguing survival in a ruthless industry demands hard. choices. Others condemned the deception outright, insisting no level of fame justifies rewriting a child's truth. The debate escalated, louder, harsher, less forgiving by the hour. Behind the scenes, insiders claim crisis management sprang into action. Advisors, strategists, meticulously crafted silence. But once a story hits this magnitude, control is an illusion. The narrative moves faster than anyone can rein it in. What made it even more explosive, according to sources, was the sense that more people knew than admitted. Whispers hinted this secret wasn't guarded by a single person. Protection demanded participation, and participation spreads accountability. That's when old acquaintances allegedly started speaking off record. Not to confirm, but to suggest, to hint at moments that felt off, to reference conversations now making sense. None of it definitive, yet together it painted a picture too consistent to ignore. Riley's alleged response was raw. Sources claim she didn't just feel lied to, she felt managed, like a storyline instead of a person. The emotional fallout reportedly strained her relationships, shook her sense of grounding, and eroded trust in the narratives presented to her. When your own origin is disputed, certainty falters. And still, no formal denial came. The absence became deafening. Fans waited. Commentators speculated. Silence stretched on. And in the vacuum, the story solidified into something heavier than gossip. It became belief. Not because it was proven beyond doubt, but because it was never seriously challenged. Tasha K., watching the chaos unfold, allegedly said this is exactly why secrets are perilous. Not for eventually surfacing, but for how they explode into the light. Publicly, brutally, without mercy. As days passed, the story shifted from revelation to reckoning. People stopped asking if it was true and started asking why it was hidden, why the truth was postponed, why the person most affected was the last to know. Questions like these don't fade easily. And for Riley, sources say, the hardest part wasn't the public uproar. It was the private realization that parts of her life may have been constructed to protect someone else's comfort. This saga isn't slowing down. Scrutiny only amplifies inconsistencies. And when silence stretches on, assumptions solidify. Allegedly, more voices are readying to speak, more context waits to surface, more pressure is mounting behind the scenes. What began as a revelation has morphed into a reckoning with truth, identity, and consequence. And as it unfolds, one reality is unavoidable. The fallout isn't theoretical anymore. It's happening in real time. And the question everyone is now asking isn't what happened. It's who knew and how long they let it fester. What comes next, according to sources watching closely, is a slow unraveling no statement can halt. Because once the who knew question surfaces, every relationship tied to the truth comes under a microscope. Allegedly, private calls were made. Explanations attempted. But explanations don't erase years. They only show how meticulously those years were orchestrated. Insiders claim Riley hit a breaking point not because of the revelation itself, but because of what followed. The justifications, the soft words, the reframing of deception as protection. When truth finally emerges, it doesn't want context. It demands accountability. And those close to Riley say the emotional distance that followed was immediate and permanent. Allegedly, Riley started pulling back from everyone who shaped the narrative of her life. Not out of anger, but survival. Trust once fractured doesn't shatter loudly, it erodes quietly. Conversations grow short. Visits become rare. Bonds that once felt unconditional now feel transactional. Meanwhile, public pressure ramped up. Commentators questioned why no one intervened sooner, why silence was repeatedly chosen, why a child's truth was delayed until it became a spectacle. The questions didn't single out one person, they targeted a system of protection built on image and convenience. Sources allege Kandi felt the weight immediately, not just online but personally. Friends pulled away. Support became conditional. The lack of clear denial haunted every appearance. Every quiet moment fueled a narrative now spiraling out of control. And then came the allegation that shifted everything. Insiders claim Riley confronted the idea that her entire upbringing might have been crafted to uphold a version of reality that wasn't hers. That realization, sources say, didn't spark anger. It sparked mourning. Mourning for a childhood shaped by omission. Mourning for conversations that never happened. Mourning for the right to fully know herself. This is where the story shifts from scandal to tragedy. Because if these claims hold, the damage isn't limited to reputations. It's generational. It impacts identity, belonging, and trust in ways no public apology can't fix. A secret held for years doesn't vanish when revealed. It transforms into a lifetime reckoning. Social media, however, moved faster than healing. Clips went viral. Old statements resurfaced. Fans analyzed everything from tone to timing. Sympathy was selective. Judgment merciless. In the court of public opinion, nuance rarely survives. People picked sides not by evidence, but by emotion. And emotion demanded answers. Behind the scenes, sources say the tension hit its peak. Attempts to stabilize allegedly failed because once the truth surfaced, it demanded more truth. And more truth meant more people were exposed. Whispers suggested additional confirmations existed. Not public yet, not denied, just lingering. The kind of information that doesn't need release to be felt. Silence became deliberate, heavy, strategic. Tasha K., observing the fallout, allegedly stood by her claims. Sources say she framed the situation as a warning, not a triumph. She reportedly said stories like this don't end once revealed. They echo. They follow families, shape futures, and leave invisible scars. Her stance wasn't reactive, it was responsible. The emotional toll on Riley, insiders say, kept deepening. They claimed she wrestled with the idea that her truth had been negotiated without consent. That decisions about her identity were made by people prioritizing stability over honesty. The sense of betrayal, sources say, wasn't loud, it was crushing. The kind that lingers in silence and reshapes how you see everyone. Fans notice subtle shifts, less engagement, more distance, a guarded presence that hadn't existed before. People close to Riley say she wasn't performing grief, she was surviving it. And still, no definitive clarification arrived. That absence became the loudest voice in the room. The longer it lingered, the more permanent the narrative felt. Not because it was proven beyond doubt, but because nothing challenged it with force. In public discourse, silence rarely remains neutral. It's interpreted, assumed, solidified. Sources allege this was the moment the situation crossed from mere controversy into legacy-altering territory. Because once a story embeds itself in public memory, it doesn't need confirmation to endure. It becomes how people remember, reference, and retell. Careers absorb it. Families carry it. Children inherit the weight. The tragedy, according to those closest, is that this outcome was avoidable, not by denying the truth, but by telling it earlier, privately, honestly, without cameras or commentary. The delay, sources say, is what turned a private truth into a public wound. As the story stands now, the damage isn't hypothetical. It's visible in fractured relationships, shaken dynamics, and a young woman forced to piece together her identity under a public microscope. This isn't entertainment. This is consequence. The public may eventually move on, news cycles always do. But for those at the center, the reckoning doesn't fade with attention. It lingers in family gatherings that feel off, conversations that never happen again, trust that never fully returns. And perhaps that's the cruelest truth of all, because secrets kept in the name of protection often inflict the deepest harm. They don't shield, they stall. And when they finally surface, they take more than they give. This story isn't about who controls the narrative. It's about who lost years of truth and what that loss costs for a lifetime. If you're still watching, understand this isn't just another headline to scroll past. This is the kind of story that sticks because it forces a question nobody wants to ask. How many truths are we willing to sacrifice to protect an image? What you've heard isn't cozy, and that's exactly why it matters. Behind the fame, the applause, and meticulously crafted silence, there's a human cost that never trends like scandal. Right now, people are picking sides without knowing the full story, defending narratives built on years of omission. And that's how history rewrites itself in real time. If even part of these allegations is true, this isn't gossip. It's accountability, identity, and a young woman forced to face her truth under the harshest spotlight imaginable. This is where you come in. Don't just consume the drama, question it. Ask why silence lasted so long. Ask who benefited. Ask why the person most affected was the last to know. Because when audiences stop asking, powerful stories get buried exactly where they were meant to stay.
If this shook you, share it.
If it angered you, comment. If it made you uncomfortable, stay uncomfortable. That's where truth usually lives. Stories like this don't survive because they entertain. They survive because people refuse to let them disappear. They survive because people refuse to let them vanish. And remember this: fame fades, narratives shift, but the consequences of buried truths don't. They linger long after the cameras leave. Stay sharp, stay questioning, and don't let silence complete what secrecy began.